Hello, and welcome to the St. Louis Cardinals organizational rankings. Today we are going to go over the starting pitchers. What we'll do with the starting pitchers and the outfielders is we will go over the top 10 at those positions, and we will do top 5 at the other positions. I guess first and foremost, just a little heads up for those of you who are new to how I do things. You won't find Daniel Ponce de Leon or Austin Gomber or Dakota Hudson on this list. We're not going to talk about the pitchers that have already made a major league debut, or even the pitchers that have rookie eligibility that have made a major league debut. We're going to go over the prospects specifically that have yet to make the majors. That gives us a chance to talk about some new players that you might not otherwise have heard of. I know my Prospects After Dark people, they probably have. But if you're new to the list, this gives you a chance to get caught up on some of the deeper prospects, some of the deeper cuts, if you will. Number 1 on our prospect list is right-handed pitcher, 24-year-old Ryan Helsley. Now, Ryan Helsley had kind of a weird 2018 season. His season ended on June 9th because of arm fatigue, shoulder fatigue. He tried to make a start in the Gulf Coast League in August, and it just didn't work out. He lasted 2 2/3 of an inning, didn't recover properly. But what you need to know about Ryan Helsley is a lot of people say he's going to be a bullpen arm. I still think he can be a starter. He throws a changeup, a curve, a fastball, and a cutter. All 4 pitches are at least above average. The fastball has a high spin rate. It's a high spin rate fastball. It can be devastating. I believe that his big issue is that sometimes in a count he gets kind of cute. So instead of burying a hitter when he's ahead of them, he just gets a little weird and maybe tries to nibble on the edge. His stuff is good enough that he can get aggressive in counts. I'd like to see him amp up that aggressiveness when he's healthy. The incredible Rob Raines, for his website STL Sports page, wrote an amazing article detailing what Ryan Helsley has gone through physically, and that he'll also be ready to go for the start of the 2019 season. So you can expect Ryan Helsley to make a major league impact in 2019. Number 2 on our list is the prospect that the Cardinals acquired for Tommy Pham from the Tampa Bay Rays, Genesis Cabrera. Now, Genesis Cabrera is a 22-year-old left-handed starting pitcher who Derek Gould wrote an article about, saying that he had been pitching exclusively out of the bullpen while playing in the Winter League, rather. Here's the thing about Genesis, right? Genesis is a real small, like he's tall, but he's really thin. He doesn't have much in the way of like a lower body. But Genesis throws a fastball, a curveball, a slider, and a changeup. The curveball is a little behind the other pitches, and his slider gets a little lazy sometimes. But all of his pitches are pretty solid. Fastball can get up to 97, 98, but it usually stays about 94, 93, 95, somewhere around that area. Genesis is developing. To be 22 and to have had success at AAA and the AAA playoffs kind of gives you an idea of how good this kid is. His issue is, up until this year, he had trouble repeating his delivery. The delivery repeatability is getting better. It has gotten quite a bit better. That'll be an important cog for him moving forward. He still walks too many people, but I believe that as he gets more and more used to that mechanical change, good things will be in store for him. Number 3 on our list is right-handed pitcher and 22-year-old Jake Woodford. Now, Jake Woodford is a former first-round pick. The issue with Jake is that he allows too many base runners, whether it be via walk or hit. Now, the thing about Jake Woodford is that he has really good command. It's just that sometimes his pitches don't bite the way that you would want the pitches to bite. He does and has continued to make strides with a changeup, which is really, really good, and a curveball in particular that sometimes looks great. Same thing kind of with Genesis Cabrera, although he's not as good or as potentially devastating as Genesis is or can be. Woodford is getting better, and he could be a really interesting piece. Remember, with Jake Woodford, time is still on his side. He can spend all of 2019 at Memphis, and the Cardinals will still be in good shape. Probably won't happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Jake Woodford making a major league debut by the end of the year. Number 4 on our list is 2018 draft pick Griffin Roberts. Griffin Roberts went to Wake Forest. All you need to know about Griffin Roberts is that he throws just one of the most devastating sliders I've ever seen. It's on line with what Luke Gregerson was throwing when Luke Gregerson was unhittable. What Sergio Romo throws slider-wise. It's like a light version of what Adam Ottavino throws. Now, Griffin Roberts is 22 years old, and I would imagine the Cardinals are going to be aggressive with him, similar to how they were with Dakota Hudson. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the year at AA. His fastball, 94, 95, 93, it's not like, it's like Jack Flaherty's fastball. He doesn't overthrow it. He doesn't throw it too hard. He just goes out and throws it. It's a very, very good pitch. The changeup is still coming a long way. Still has a little ways to come, rather. But Griffin Roberts he's going to be dynamite. You guys are going to love him. The curve is still developing, too. But, man, do I really like Griffin Roberts. I'm anxious to see what 2019 looks like. Number 5 on our list is left-handed pitcher and East Carolina alum, Evan Kruczynski. Evan Kruczynski is a 6'2", 6'3" left-hander who doesn't do a whole lot of stuff. Think of him kind of like Austin Gomber. Now, Evan Kruczynski is coming off of a very, very successful Arizona Fall League, where he actually was a lot like Austin Gomber was 2-3 years ago in the Arizona Fall League. No one really talked about him. He just went out, pitched well, and did the job. That's Evan Kruczynski. Fastball, curveball, changeup guy. All 3 pitches work really well. With Kruczynski, what's really impressive is how he mitigates power from the right-handed side of the plate as a left-handed pitcher. I believe Kruczynski's a perfect 4 or 5 starter. Maybe he's a back end of the bullpen kind of guy, similar to what we saw out of Tyler Lyons when Tyler Lyons was good. But I really like Kruczynski. I think he mixes his pitches up very well. Number 6 on our list is Johan Oviedo. Now, Oviedo was signed 2 years ago on July 2nd. At the time, he was an 18-year-old Cuban. Now he's a 21-year-old Cuban. 6'6", 220 pounds at least. Some people say he's 210. He's 220, 225. His season was a tale of 2 halves. The first half he struggled. The second half he was dynamite. He still walks too many people. But as we're going to get to here with our number 8 prospect in a minute, the bigger players have trouble repeating their delivery, and Oviedo had that. When Oviedo got his mechanics in line, his velocity ticked back up to the mid-90s, high 90s on the regular basis. His curveball looked really good, and his changeup paired well. But he needs to work on the location. And as a 21-year-old pitching in Peoria, or 20-year-old pitching in Peoria, I was really happy with the strides he made during the season. He'll probably be at Palm Beach next year, and you'll be able to see a drastic improvement in his stats. I would think. Prospect number 7 is a gentleman named Angel Rondon. Now, Rondon will be a prospect that you probably won't hear about any other place than with me. Keep an eye on him. Now, he's a low 90s, mid 90s fastball thrower who throws a curveball that can be exposed by left-handed hitters, but when it's on, it's devastating on the outside half to lefties as well as it can be tough on righties. His changeup leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion, but he's 20 years old, and when he played and pitched in the New York Penn League in Peoria last year, he was really, really impressive. And I don't know where he'll start this year. My guess is that he'll be back in Peoria. He only had like 6 or 7 starts at that level last year. But he could be a really interesting as like a back-end bullpen kind of pitcher. The jury's still out on him. There's still a lot to discuss there. But he gets his leg up really high, kind of like Jordan Hicks does, but he brings his hands down like into his midsection a little bit more. He has a kind of a deceptive motion. There is a lot of upside with Mr. Rondon. Little aggressive on his follow-through. Like to see him calm that down, but beggars can't be choosers. The 8th prospect on our starting pitching list is Casey Meisner. Meisner was a prospect that the Cardinals acquired for Josh Lucas when they traded Josh Lucas to the A's. Now, Meisner, as we were mentioning, is 6'7". He's a little taller, a little lankier than Johan Oviedo. Meisner throws 4 pitches. He throws a slider, a curve, a changeup, and a fastball. Now, his fastball is low 90s. It's never going to top out any more than 91, 92 miles an hour. But because he's big, the ball gets on hitters really, really quick. Downward plane, all that other nonsense. His curveball is what I really like. His slider I like too. Because of his arm action, his arm follows the break of the pitch. And it's like another distraction, another act of deception in his motion. And I like that a lot. Now, Meisner, he had a bunch of mechanical issues that he worked to pave out. And by the end of the year, he was repeating his delivery superbly. I love to see that. I'm really anxious about the 2019 season that Casey Meisner is going to have. Again, it's going to be about inducing strikeouts and keeping the ball on the ground for Meisner. Prospect number 9, one of my sneaky favorites, a gentleman named Jake Walsh, 23 years old, made it to Advanced A Palm Beach last year. Now, Walsh, the thing about Walsh is he doesn't do anything spectacularly, right? His curve is 12-6, but it doesn't really it can be a really good pitch, but it doesn't always profile as a good pitch. His changeup can kind of drop off the table. It's not always consistent. His fastball is low 90s, but Walsh has pretty solid command, and he manages to mix all of his pitches really well. What concerns me about Jake Walsh is that when he got the promotion to Palm Beach, I believe he struck out 69 in 91 innings. So his strikeout rate went down. And that's usually a sign that he's not fooling anyone. And that's probably a sign that in the Florida State League, which is a pitcher-friendly league, that some of his stats were suppressed by the pitcher-friendly stadiums and wind of the Florida State League. But Jake Walsh had a great 2018 season, and it was worth making a special note of it. Our number 10 prospect is left-handed pitcher Austin Warner. Austin Warner is a really great story. 3 years ago, Austin Warner was pitching for the River City Rascals in the St. Louis area, we'll just say. And that's the independent league baseball. The Cardinals saw him, recognized him, and in 2 years' time, Austin Warner has made it to Memphis and was pitching really, really solid for the Memphis Redbirds down the stretch. Now, Austin Warner, he might not be like the kind of prospect that you look at, especially at 25 years old, and you start checking boxes like, wow, he's not this good, he's not this, blah, blah, blah. Well, Austin Warner just has that demeanor. He never overthrows. He's a professional minor leaguer. He just has that professional demeanor. He throws a curveball that's really good, a changeup, and a fastball, and he never overthrows any of his pitches. He has pretty solid command. When he pitched in Memphis, his stuff was kind of exposed sometimes. He wasn't as devastating against lefties as I had hoped. But in 2019, remember, a left-handed pitcher who could probably pitch out of the bullpen and use a curve effectively against lefties is just one injury away from making a major league debut. Root for Austin Warner. That's the takeaway from the article. Root for him, because if you can't root for Austin Warner, then you can't root for anyone. There are a couple pitchers that I have in my next man up. Now, I passed over Connor Jones while doing the top 10. Connor Jones is a second-round pick out of the University of Virginia. Connor Jones is going to be an awesome bullpen piece for the Cardinals. He's had a great Arizona Fall League. His fastball got up to the high 90s. It's a two-seam fastball that sinks, and it's a power sinker. He's going to induce a lot of ground balls. Think of him as like the best version of Matt Bowman that we ever saw. But he's still a starting pitcher, so he stays in there. I kind of discarded him. Andrew Somerville, I discarded. There are a lot of interesting starting pitchers that I kind of blew over. Some guys in the Dominican Summer League. But I decided to go with our next man up as Alvaro Seijas. Seijas pitched in Peoria, and he had a really, really rocky year. There's sometimes when he looks great, and there's other times when he looks terrible. There's sometimes when he has curveball command, and there's sometimes when he has fastball command, and there's sometimes when he has no command at all. When he has no command at all, he gets really frustrated, and it's frustrating to watch. He'll prance around the mound. He'll shake his head. He just gets rattled when he doesn't have feel of his stuff, and it ends up costing him in the long run. Seijas is 20 years old. He, too, will probably be at Palm Beach this coming year, and that'll help his stats. It'll probably help his mind a little bit, too. Seijas throws with a violent motion, a violent over-the-top three-quarters kind of delivery, and we worry about his health in the long run because of it. But he's a very good starting pitcher with the potential to have a really devastating breaking pitch. In my mind, Alvaro Seijas was where Junior Fernandez was a couple years ago. You can see all those skills. He doesn't have the fastball that Junior Fernandez has, but you can see all those skills, and you just wait for them to manifest. And that is our tour through the Cardinals' starting pitching depth in the organization, our top 10 with a couple other gentlemen thrown in. Stay tuned tomorrow, and we'll have the relief pitchers, the top 5 relief pitchers. And I hope you enjoyed. Please leave your questions, your comments. Another quick little hat tip goes to Steve Gindry, who was the Cardinals' 4th-round draft pick, recovering from Tommy John surgery. He would have been on the list, but I'm going to hold off putting him on the list until he's healthy. It looks like he's going to be healthy and make a solid recovery, but he hasn't done it yet. And we'll see where we go from there. For everybody at Birds on the Block, I'm Kyle Reese. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. And as always, happy hunting.